Transmigrated as a disabled protagonist, how should I continue the script? Chapter 39, Meeting on a Rainy Day. Can this kind-hearted person help me find Dororo? Yakimaru rarely handed over the book to strangers. On the few occasions he did, it was always after repeatedly confirming that the other person's soul was pure and had not done anything bad. Especially after so many days without seeing Dororo, the unease of losing someone important surrounded him, and he could not bear to lose the last thing he had. His first impression of Oda Sakanosuke was quite good. The other man was tall, a head taller than him, and the white flame of his life burned steadily. His vitality was full, not the kind that was in a sickly state. Is he a samurai? Or a nobleman? Based on Yakimaru's rough impression of ancient Japan, someone as tall as him must certainly have no worries about food or clothing. This kind of person is either the bottom feeder or has realized from the chaos of the world how difficult survival is. Labeled with the title of samurai or nobleman, Oda Sakanosuke was actually just an ordinary passerby. He had short reddish-brown hair, a young face with an indifference that didn't match his age, and a light-colored coat paired with a gray shirt. He had the kind of appearance that wouldn't stand out in a crowd. However, it was precisely this unremarkable person whose soul radiated kindness toward Yakimaru. He stood in front of the black-haired boy, staring gloomily at his phone, realizing for the third time that the number had been blocked. "Your friend had an argument with you?" Oda Sakanosuke returned the book to him, personally witnessing how much the other person cherished it as he placed it inside his kimono. Even though the other's bandages were soiled and the outer layer of the kimono was covered in dust, the book remained spotless. From this young man, Oda Sakanosuke sensed a purity long forgotten. It wasn't the kind of purity born from ignorance of the world, but rather a purity maintained while wandering in the city's forgotten corners. He neither stole nor robbed, neither cried nor made a fuss, making Oda associate him with the mirror that reflects the bright side of humanity. Yakimaru had gotten used to people talking to him, and he would automatically interpret the other person's words as if they were speaking into thin air. Useless. He couldn't hear, couldn't see himself, and there were too few ways to communicate with the outside world. Not everyone is like Father Dororo, or the color-changing demon god's human host, with enough patience, willing to expend a great deal of effort on a blind and deaf person, trying to understand what they meant. He slightly lowered his head and turned in the opposite direction from Oda Sakanosuke. After finishing the meal, it was time to return. Oda Sakanosuke didn't call him back. Doing good deeds was just like that. If he could help, he would lend a hand. If he couldn't, there was no need to feel guilty. A person's strength is limited, it's enough to do what is within one's ability. Though saying this, Oda Sakanosuke spoke in a low voice. "You can't hear, huh?" He could understand a person being deaf, but what he couldn't comprehend was the black-haired boy's gaze. Having been an assassin, he was particularly sensitive to people's eyes, yet the other's gray-brown eyes were filled with emptiness. They were like a pair of empty hands, yet at the same time, it felt as though they could see through his soul, making one pause in awe. The person on the phone wasn't entirely wrong. His survival ability was incredibly strong, and there was no need for a stranger like him to worry. To participate in the life of someone whose body was broken would require constant kindness, which wasn't something so simple. He wasn't capable of offering help to someone without being prepared and then walking away, because that would be more cruel than neglect. Oda Sakanosuke thought about his dried-up wallet and sighed. Ever since the new boss took over, the wages of the port mafia's lower ranks have become really low. Every day I have to save a little, and at most, I can only afford 2 curry meals a day. He raised his head to look at the sky. It seems like it's going to rain today. I forgot to bring an umbrella. That boy should be fine. By now, he should have returned to his place of residence. He walked toward the port mafia, suppressing his emotions, blending in naturally with the lower-tier staff. Everyone has their own life. Yakimaru returned to the clinic. No one had come by. On the clinic's door was a notice Yakimaru couldn't see, which read, "Clinic closed due to poor business, shutting down." Yakimaru squatted at the door, his arms wrapped around his knees, burying his head between them, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. His high ponytail revealed a portion of his neck, which was not covered by bandages. The exposed skin invited infection, and at every moment, the illusionist ability shielded him from external bacterial infection. In this regard, Rokudo Mukuro could be considered a rare, good person. Rokudo Mukuro himself was captured by the Vendici and imprisoned in the dark water prison. His limbs were immobile, his body injected with a paralyzing neurotoxin, and even his eye of the 6 paths of reincarnation was covered and suppressed by a special device. His greatest pleasure each day was watching the outside world. He compares himself to Yakimaru, but he is more fortunate because he is an illusionist, able to gain an external view through a false contract. In other words, Rokudo Mukuro is actually the person who understands Yakimaru's current state the most, becoming more and more shocked by the latter's survival abilities with each encounter. Although he hasn't communicated with the ignorant Yakimaru, he frequently sees the world through the other's eyes, constantly marveling at this world filled only with darkness and the flame of life. Kufu, Fu. In a bottomless underwater prison, beneath a foreign prison annually covered in snow. The blue-haired boy, bound by chains, closed his eyes, lowering half of his face into the obstructing blanket, as if he were in a deep sleep, floating in the water. The illusionist is a profession that relies on spiritual strength and willpower. He had absorbed precious survival motivation from Yakimaru, gaining further insight and understanding of the mind's eye. As long as his spiritual strength continued to grow, sooner or later, he would become an illusionist feared by the Vendici. All the hardships that didn't defeat him would become stepping stones for his strength. Yakimaru's example motivated Rokudo Mukuro. At this point, I want to thank him, surpassing human beings. Willpower. The contractor I can't control. No, good. I still need to find another suitable long-term host for the contract. Over there. A place of spiritual connection, is it Japan? Oh, I see. There's one. Because of a car accident, she lost her organs. A little girl missing her right eye. The parents don't want treatment. Kufu. Humans always repeat similar things. As parents, to abandon their child. Truly pitiful and infuriating. Rokudo Mukuro, in the spiritual world, walked slowly and encountered a girl from the future who had changed her name to Chrome Dokuro. It was like Yakimaru meeting Dororo. In the depths of despair, the one who can save you is the most unique beam of light in your life. At the Port Mafia's headquarters, Tezuka Osamu occupied a solitary room on the top floor. As a student of Mori Ogai and a newly established figure with great achievements, he held a high starting point, commanding a guerrilla team entrusted to him by Mori Ogai, and he didn't need to struggle from the bottom like ordinary people. The curtain in the room was pulled up, and faint traces of wear could be seen on the delicate painting on the wall. Tezuka Osamu lay on the sofa, holding the shattered screen of his phone between 2 fingers, raising it before his eyes. The dim light from the phone illuminated his face, casting alternating shadows of cold light. On the screen, a motionless red dot was displayed, stopping at an unmarked clinic on the map. In the lower right corner of the map, there was a number from an infrared body temperature check, 36 degrees Celsius, normal temperature. Just one click to open this surveillance button, and it can even open the surveillance cameras around the clinic. How could the Port Mafia boss's favorite place be missing these devices? Titch. Tezuka Osamu didn't check the surveillance cameras, nor did he bother to seal the clinic with cement, out of respect. He left one place of residence, and as for the rest, let him deal with it himself. Aren't you a follower? He ignored the intense negative emotions he felt when he heard Dororo. Yakimaru could survive on his own without him, he was just playing the role of a temporary companion. Outside the door, Hiratsu Yuro, a veteran member of the Port Mafia, knocked twice. Come in. Tezuka Osamu put away his phone. Tezuka-san, the boss instructed me to bring you to meet the organization's members. With graying hair, Hiratsu Yuro respectfully spoke, resembling more of an elderly gentleman in a cafe. Hiratsu-san, the first time we met, I said there was no need for honorifics. I just joined the Port Mafia, and there are many things I want to ask my senior. Tezuka Osamu, standing in a dimly lit area where his face was barely visible, spoke in a relaxed, youthful tone with a slight smile. However, I'm not in the mood to meet them today. Please come again tomorrow. Hiratsuyuro nodded, not correcting himself. Good, please rest assured, Dazai-san. He knew that Tezuka Osamu was on leave and dared not take lightly this young man brought in by the leader. The other had been involved in the Port Mafia's leadership transition, not only emerging unscathed but also becoming the current leader's favored candidate. How many 14-year-old boys could pull that off with such calm composure? As he was closing the door, Hiratsuyuro couldn't help but glance inside out of the corner of his eye. Tezuka Osamu sat up on the sofa, his expression cold and indifferent in the darkness. His gaze briefly swept over the narrow slit of light between the curtains, and just that one glance sent chills through Hiratsuyuro, who had seen countless things in his life. Fortunately, before Tezuka Osamu could turn his head, Hiratsuyuro had already closed the door, silently sweating. Youths these days. Ah. Outside, the sky finally showed signs of rain. The sunlight could no longer penetrate through the curtains, and the weak light in the gap gradually faded from his sight, retreating to the world outside the window. Tezuka Osamu's eyes held nothing, as he listened to the faint sound of rain falling outside. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by the distant rumble of thunder. The strong wind mixed with rain blew one corner of the curtains aside, revealing that he hadn't closed the window. It's raining. He noticed the dampness in the air, so subtle it was almost undetectable, and murmured to himself. The rain couldn't wash away the restlessness in his heart. The Port Mafia's old building stood for years, washed clean by the falling rain. The cityscape stretched up into the sky, differing from the vibrant splendor of a bustling city under the bright sunlight. Gloom shrouded the city, with torrential rain pouring down like a photograph drained of color, and even the neon lights, though brilliant, could not illuminate the entire city. Yakimaru couldn't hear the sound of the rain hitting the ground, but he felt his stomach churn. An hour passed, and he was hungry again. The black-haired boy, unwilling to leave, persistently guarded the door of the clinic. Rainwater fell from the eaves, avoiding him, but the strong wind blew it back, wetting the bandages on his right leg and his shoes. Hungry. His inner world was quiet, with only a slight ripple stirred by hunger. From deep within the chaotic alley, a calico cat, clutching something in its mouth, skillfully dashed forward, leaping over puddles and avoiding the rain, and arrived before Yakimaru. It shook its wet fur in discomfort and dropped the bag containing bread from its mouth, a trace of human-like helplessness appearing on its face. If someone could read the inner thoughts of the calico cat, they would hear the usually prideful and tsundere cat boss letting out a sigh. This old man has never seen someone having a cat feed them. During this period, whenever Natsume Soseki had free time, he would visit Yakimaru to check on how the latter was living. He broke away from his usual bystander's stance and, in human form, went to a store to buy bread. However, a sudden downpour interrupted his plans, and out of concern for the child's situation, he quickly rushed back. Meow. The calico cat let out a sound, using its little paw that a certain disciple wanted to pet to nudge Yakimaru. At that moment, the cat and the human connected. Yakimaru's body twitched slightly, lifting his face from his knees. Then, without any reaction to the strange occurrence, he went ahead and ate the food the calico cat had given him. An animal feeding me? A child of the heavens. I didn't expect to have such fortune even after subjugating the demon god. Automatically accepting the role of the child of the heavens, Yakimaru's adaptability to the world remained exceptional, well deserving of being the top trainee among the 100 transmigrators. Nothing ever felt strange to him, no matter the setting. He had seen even more bizarre scenarios. At one point, the calico cat went to great lengths to stop him from eating the plastic bag, and afterward, it even took charge of picking up the packaged bag and dropping it into a flip-top trash can. Yakimaru hugged his knees with one arm while the other was reserved specifically to pet its head. Calico cat. I really didn't want to be touched by a junior, fine. The rain was falling heavier and heavier, and outside, the wind whistled through the narrow alleys and gaps, making eerie sounds. The calico cat, not at all disliking the dirtiness, and bit Yakimaru's sleeve, tugging him in the direction of the clinic's main door. "Child, come inside." Natsume Soseki had no descendants, so he poured his feelings into this country and city. He thought if he had a grandson, stubborn and endearing like Yakimaru, he certainly wouldn't have the heart to scold him. He would just hope the boy could quickly taste the warmth and genuine affection of the world. Yakimaru did not change his determination to stay here. The calico cat's strength was much smaller compared to his. He had no one to talk to, so he spoke to the calico cat. "Do. Roro. Meow. Do. Ro. Ro. Wait." In the world of the black-haired boy, there was no storm, no cold, yet he endured an indescribable loneliness. He was truly grateful for this little animal coming to accompany him. The small figure trembled slightly when being touched, filled with the lively life flame moving forward, warm and kind. Indeed, this was the only color in many years that could give Yakimaru a sense of peace. The system reminded him that he still had 2 years left, and only after those 2 years would the plot officially begin. He felt fortunate to have encountered Dororo first, indulging in the unknown events that occurred along the way. He also willingly believed that after resolving those unforeseen incidents, Dororo would return to meet him. Because, after all, they were destined to meet. Fate brought Dororo to his side, waiting for him to open his eyes and see her. Yakimaru's unique voice made the calico cat freeze, and then its tail drooped. "You can't recognize your Dororo." The sorrow of encountering each other without knowing. Natsume Soseki never thought that in his lifetime, he would meet such a person, a boy with many missing body parts, and a grand disciple who kills to save. That's right, Mori Ogai was Natsume Soseki's student, and Disastrous Osamu was Mori Ogai's student. With such a lineage of 3 generations of teacher-student relationships, Disastrous Osamu could be said to share a bit of a connection with him. At this moment, Natsume Soseki could only think of raising his gentleman's cane and knocking it over Mori Ogai's head. How could you treat children like this? First, Yosano Akiko was left with psychological trauma by Mori Ogai, her spirit broken. Then, Disastrous Osamu was led into darkness by Mori Ogai, losing his only friend, Yakimaru. Though it was all done to protect their country and city, the ones sacrificed in the process were always others. The calico cat suddenly let out a meow and jumped from Yakimaru's hand, leaping to a higher spot. The heavy rain masked the sound of footsteps. In front of the clinic, Yakimaru stood under the eaves, unable to avoid the rain. His clothes were more than half soaked, and the complete suicide was placed on his abdomen, completely protected. He belatedly noticed and pinched his wet sleeve, took out the red leather book, and placed it in a dry spot behind him, then casually sat there. He quietly looked at the rain-soaked world, experiencing a unique non-human sensation. The illusion covering him unconsciously strengthened a bit, shielding him from the rain. Yakimaru, having not yet fulfilled his destiny, remains isolated from the world, and this world also hides him safely in a corner. Not far from that place, Disastrous Osamu, dressed in a suit with a black coat, stood there. At times, he seemed frighteningly mature, and at other times, as frail as a child who hadn't grown up. He used his sharp mind to disguise himself, shielding himself against the harms of the outside world. He let the heavy rain drench him at will, the bandage over his right eye soaked by the rain, with streams of water continually running down. Yet the flame of his life always emitted a deep red glow, while layers of sin trapped his gray soul within. Hundreds of lives, reprimanded Disastrous Osamu in such a way, staining his life flame. Good and evil in people both exist. No one on either side cared about those destined to be abandoned by both blacks and whites. The 4th time, seeing this person. Yakimaru didn't want to see anyone outside of Dororo. His eyes barely moved, and he buried his face back into his knees. Does he know Dororo? But from what he's seen, this person is completely the type that deserves to die 1,000 times over. Good people have 1,000 reasons to do evil yet do not, while evil people have 10,000 excuses to commit evil when there's no need. This person's heart no longer holds any conscience. Tezuka Osamu stood in the rain, looking at him. Yakimaru did not lift his head, and neither of them knew who had been abandoned first. Rainwater dripped continuously from Tezuka Osamu's hair. It seemed as if he were crying. But Yakimaru, oblivious to such expressions, did not know. Tezuka Osamu did not need him to know. A puppet has no vision, and in concealing himself, he had lost meaning, now able to strip away layer after layer of disguise. Yakimaru had been waiting for Dororo for half a month, yet he hadn't realized that Dororo had been right in front of him all along. His Dororo had tracked down a method for his cure, contacting people they fundamentally didn't know, and to obtain the funds and information for the cure, had become an undercover agent for the special division in the port mafia, operating in the shadows. Go to the clinic. You, with that pitiful abandoned look, just like a stray dog. Who are you showing this to? Tezuka Osamu wanted to borrow life, but not like this. His puppet should have become a living, breathing person, who could cry and laugh, someone who, even in a limited, illusory world, wanted to survive, a person truly opposite to him in every sense. Why must you wait for me? Why do you hold on to me, only to push me away? The Dororo you know. Even if he stepped into darkness, he wouldn't hurt you, you fool. Chapter 39 End.